This time you're trying to stir up trouble.
Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the Crow Wing County Committee of the Whole meeting to order for September 21st, 2021. Our first order of business is the top 20 report from Ms. Terry and Mr. Bertram. Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the Crow Wing County Committee of the Whole meeting to order for September 21st, 2021. You guys sound official. Business is the top.
Sorry. Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
You may remember a few years back, we brought a top 20 report for 2018-2019 to Cal. We looked for the date that we brought that, and neither Teresa nor I could find it, but I'm fairly certain we brought it to you. This report shows those families that we interact with the most in all of our systems, as well as those folks who utilize medical assistance claiming and who are the top 10, 20 users of that service as well. So a few reasons behind looking at this type of a report is so we can know where our folks are spending their time. When I say our folks, I mean our staff. We have a pretty robust data collection system or systems that help us to understand who's spending their time where. Excuse me. In addition, it also helps us to see those clients who are interacting with a number of our staff so we can make sure that we're coordinating services so we're not duplicating anything. And then it also helps us to see who might be doing a task well and help others to learn how to do that specific task more efficiently. So a staff person may complete a task within 5 minutes while we see another staff person completing it in 20 minutes. What's the difference? How do we improve in the completion of that task? We have a number of different systems to track the data. And I want to thank you guys for that because we were able, with your approval of investment, to be able to build the systems that we can look at and track the work that our staff are doing. We do time tracking in both the social services side on both our children and families and adults, as well as community corrections. We started time tracking there a year and a half ago or so. So today we're bringing you the data. As you can see in the first paragraph, we have a number of major systems that we work within. So for example, Maxis is our system primarily for income maintenance. That system has things like food support, cash assistance. METS is another system that is our healthcare system. PRISM is for child support. SSIS is our social service system. CSTS is our corrections system. Nightingale Notes is for our public health, and VIMS is the veteran system. And we can pull data from all of these different systems to get a more holistic picture of the clients that we serve. Something to note, one person may have a case in multiple systems. So someone could be receiving food support working in the Maxis system. They could have health care in the MET system. They could be paying child support in CSTS, have a probation case, or PRISM, probation case in CSTS. So there could be one person that overlaps all of the systems. But as you'll note in the graph, individuals by system, these reflect different clients, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the number of individuals served. You may see a data discrepancy here. The 15,838 individuals and 14,237 MNsure cases, that was pulled from one of our data systems, whereas in the graph, the MNsure cases, for example, is around 6,500. That's quite a difference. So we've got some work to do in figuring out the discrepancy between those two numbers because that isn't correct. So I just wanted to highlight that. In addition, folks who have a case, let's say in the MNsure system, could be listed as the primary family member, but they may have 3 children with them on the case. So this case number information in the graph is reflective of individuals, but not a complete picture of all of the individuals served, if that makes sense. So we're going to walk you through the rest of the pages of the graph, then I'll share some additional information, and whatever questions you have, let us know as we move through. Nathan took over the data stuff for the agency when Rachel Grimes left, and so he'll walk you through the magic that he's worked.
Good morning. You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Good deal. I know last time I was here, that was a concern. I didn't talk loud enough, part of it. So it's a little hard not to get too into the weeds because there's a lot of data on here, and I can just tell you, going through 2018, 2019, and 2020, when it was all up in the spreadsheets, it was really hard to kind of figure out how to condense this down into some kind of report. So I'm gonna kind of skim, because you guys can read this or have read this already. So 2018, 2019, 2020, in this first paragraph up here above 2018, it just talks about how many total hours there were and the median amount of time spent per case. That is of all cases. That is not just the top 20. That was for the whole case that year and the median amount of time spent per case. As we work down, where we get into this 2018, and then the following page is 2019, and then eventually 2020, what I noticed when I started going through 3 years is some of the names continued to pop up in subsequent years, excuse me. So what I tried to do is mark those without identifying anyone so you could follow them through the report. So for example, in 2018, you see that top one, I labeled 1A. In 2019, there's still 1A. And then in 2020, it's 12A. That's the same family group, same kids, same father, mother, aunt, uncle. I don't know off the top of my head what case that was. So you can kind of follow those through from page to page. I'm not going to go through all of the summary of each of those pages, but I will jump to just kind of the last ones where it talks, where do I got my summary here? So I think the two families, there's two that spanned all 3 years of those top 20 families.
Which page are you on? Just so
Oh,
they know
sorry, I
which
jumped
one.
to 11 here just because that's where I kind of summarized everything up. So, for example, Family 1A, and 12A, I think it was in 2020. They're one of the two families that spanned all 3 years. There was 8 other families that spanned 2 years in that same time frame. So I think when we start looking at those and the amount of time and energy we spend on them as a supervisor, in my perspective, it starts giving us a way to look at, okay, what can we do differently at these cases? Let's take a look at what the story is behind some of the data. I'm not going to share that here just for confidentiality purposes. We certainly can have some one-on-one dialogues at a later point if you'd like. I mean, when you look at the pie graphs kind of speak into it, most of these top 20 cases, if not all, are child protection. As a supervisor for the chemical dependency unit and the mental health unit, I look at kind of my bar graphs and I'm looking at, okay, how do I and how does my team fit in and how do we do this better? And I think kind of with some of the SUD reform stuff and the care coordination we got going on there, I think we're looking at how we do that in this new form of service. So we look forward to that here in 2021. I'm not going to go through all the dollars and cents. There's averages there for every year individually. And you can kind of pick out the highs and lows. I will jump to this top 10 claims for 2019 and 2020. That should be on page 2020.
Page 9.
Oh, sorry, page 9. Did I say page 2020?
You did.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, so top 10 claims for 2019, 2020. This is a little bit different flavor because this is just looking at medical claims. This is not necessarily the large amount of time we see in some of the top 20 cases that are usually more related to child protection. These are usually, and for the most part, other than I think 2 or 3 of these, are waiver cases, individuals with high medical needs. They might be in a group home, might have significant disabilities, might need feeding, cleaning, etc. Most of these claims are related to that. And most of these, there isn't a ton of change year after year. These ones I identified kind of the same way, only it's backwards. Sorry, that's probably confusing, but I didn't want it to be confused with the top 20 families. So for example, 2019, it's A1, so it's backwards. So that same in 2020, that same top person is A1 in that group as well. So the most amount of medical claims through waiver, hospital insurance is that same person. And that carries on through there, so wherever 2 is. So for example, 2019 F2 would be the same person as B2 in 2020.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
could you just walk through that chart as far as what each of those means, the identifier, the claim amount, the time?
Yep.
And just give us a little.
They have a little pointer. Okay, so 2019, 2020, for example, 1A up there. Oh,
And that's a
Asking you shall
family?
receive.
now I just gotta figure out how to use it.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Okay, so 1A, for example, is the same as A1. Oops, excuse me. A1, same as A1.
And is that a
That's the
family or a person?
That is an individual.
One individual.
Yep, so when we get into this top 10 claims, that's more individual waiver related, individual person. The top 20 report was usually child protection work groups where there's lots of multiple people.
So probably an elderly waiver, a disability waiver, a TBI waiver.
So I'll give you an example. We have, and I was going to do this at the end, but this maybe will help you understand. We have an individual, female, who is older now. In her 30s, she was involved in a domestic abuse situation which caused a significant TBI, or traumatic brain injury. And so we've been helping her or managing her case since that's occurred. She is in an adult foster care facility. She needs significant help with cleaning and bathing and that type of thing. So there is 24-hour help with her. And that has continued for some time because of her needs and now that she's older because of her age. So that's an example of someone who would have significant medical assistance claims. No children involved, but family and caregivers are quite satisfied with her care at this time. Obviously, it's not where they wished she would be, but she's being well taken care of now, and she seems to be happy as you can be in that situation. So that's an example of someone that would be involved in this type of grid or table, I guess is what I'm looking for.
I want to ask one question for clarification on the 2019 top 10.
Yep.
Line D, line F2, and line J has spaces that aren't filled in.
And which
So it
page?
appears that
Yep.
nobody's working, nobody's doing anything, but we're spending $400 and some thousand on line D. And what's, clarify that for me.
And I wondered about that too when I was going through this. I'm like, well, what are these cases? And the one of them doesn't have any state record. And so what that represents is just all medical costs. So whether that person had some kind of significant tragic accident, was on medical assistance, went to a hospital and lived in the hospital indefinitely for a period of time, that's where those costs amounted from.
So we are responsible for those bills. We had one younger gal who was involved in a car accident and was in a nursing home for rehabilitative services, and we're required to pay a certain percentage of that care. And so we wouldn't necessarily have a social worker or someone going to that facility to meet with her. The facility themselves would handle that care, but we're still responsible or required to pay a portion of the cost related to that. So that could be one of the scenarios that would occur.
Okay.
Wouldn't we want to follow up on that and see the kind of care that she is getting and what they're providing for her, rather than just pay the bills?
Yes.
And I think, I mean, some of those individuals in a hospital, they might have other family who are there who are making medical decisions, and we're not necessarily privy for the hospital to make a referral to us for some of that. I mean, their discharge planners and their social workers kind of work on pieces of that as well, and so,
And often we don't know about them until we get the bill to pay for them, so.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share, because we can share a lot of data. We've got a lot of data. But what we're really talking about here is people. And so I shared the one example of the gal who needed assistance. We have another young lady who's been in the system for a very long time, initially for child protection, and as she grew up, significant mental health issues, and she was the victim of sexual abuse, so potentially, allegedly, well, she was convicted, perpetrated on others. Her mental health and her behaviors are such that she cannot live in the community because of community safety for the community themselves and for her as well. So she is in a single foster care home in the state, and we provide service. She came out of the DOC, so the prison system, and was put on probation with our corrections team. Our corrections team had to work closely with the waiver team on the adult side and coordinate her services. And so we're able to see who's spending what time where and ensure that there's not a duplication of services between both of the teams, and designate a primary worker that can work with this individual. We have a number of child protection cases too that we can go through, and really having the staff look at how they're working with that individual and how they're coordinating services for that individual, if it's child protection or income maintenance, to get a form completed. When they're going out, just get that done while they're out there and get it into the income maintenance unit. So all of that type of coordination consistently happens, and this information or data is a tool to help us verify that it's consistently happening, but also helps us ask questions that we may not have known to ask without the data, if that makes sense. I hope it does.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Does anybody that comes in, I guess I don't know how to quite ask this, but does anybody that comes in and starts getting benefits, do they ever get off the benefits? Mm-hmm. They do? Because I can remember when I was I think I was like 19 years old, I was working at the fairgrounds, and nobody will remember this name, but Bill Friday was his name. He was the president of CTC at the time, but he was actually a county commissioner. And I can remember driving down 13th Street, we're going back to the fairgrounds, and he pointed at a specific house, and he said, that's second generation of welfare in that house. So it's just kind of generational. So I'm just wondering, do we encourage people to get a job and get off of this? Or, I mean, it's just so easy, and then, the other day I was at Holiday gas station, somebody had like a 40-ounce pop, and I could see they were using what is it called? An
The EBT?
EBT card, and then got a whole stack of, not with the EBT card, but got a whole stack of scratch-offs. So, I mean, I don't know, it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And it can be frustrating for us too, right? So as a former financial worker, I used to see folks come in with, at Hennepin County, they would come in with maybe really nice cell phones and big diamonds in their ear, and I'm like, I can't even afford that, and I'm working full-time, right? But then I have to catch myself because I wasn't in their shoes, and so I don't know their story, right? They may have had significant traumatic events that brought them to where they were, and that's not my deal to pass judgment. Not saying that you are, Commissioner, I'm just using myself as an example. And knowing that There are limits on assistance, so able-bodied adults, at least this was the case, I'll have to verify, can get 3 months' worth of food support, but that's it, if they're able to work. There are time limits on...
How do you determine that?
We track it. So our systems, even though they're antiquated, tell us when something
Because
ends.
I know that, a lot of people that work in government, for example, a police officer, okay, I'm coming in, I'm speeding, pulls me over. They've got the discretion to give me a ticket, to give me a written warning, or give me a verbal warning. How is it with a caseworker? Do they have any discretion, or if I come in and say, I need benefits, and then I fill out an application, and if I qualify, it's just automatic, or does the caseworker say, no, you know what, you can do, because there's all kinds of jobs around here.
That's a really good question. For our financial systems, for cash or food support, there are strict guidelines that we have to follow regardless of how we feel about a case. So we enter the information and it tells us if they're eligible or not. But in the social service side, maybe Nathan, you can speak more toward substance use and clients coming in and needing help, and is there discretion?
I mean, yeah, I think there's the discretion on my team as far as some things we can help with and some things we don't help with, if we feel it's beneficial to the case. And to your point, I mean, yeah, we have successes. I won't say all the time, but we have successes. I mean, I think of one gal, to your point exactly, who just recently started a job and hasn't worked in years, and so that's a big win for her. I mean, her mental health has been very poor over and over and over and over again. And another prenatal case, we had the mother, we still have case management, but it's more just to be that ongoing support piece. She's working, she has her kids, she's doing very well. And then there's some individuals, who are asking for X, Y, and Z, and we're like, well, that doesn't really fit with your case plan, and is that a need or a want? And then we're working with them to try to weigh out those things, so they hopefully can make a good decision, but ultimately some of those decisions are the clients.
And so just to your point, Commissioner Quick, there are some clients, like in the MA top 20 claims, they're not going to ever get off of the system, so to speak, because of their health needs, and they're just not physically able. But I think I shared this example with you, and I'll share it with the world. I used to be on food support when I moved out to Minnesota after I got divorced with my 4 kiddos, and now I'm not, right? Because I just needed that helping hand for a short amount of time, and then I was able to move forward through school and getting a job. So there are success stories. I can vouch. I'm one of them to move off. And I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
So another question. I got to be careful so I don't say something bad. There's a lot of the crisis that we're having on the border, and there's a lot of fentanyl pouring in here, and then a lot of people are getting hooked on drugs, and so. When I don't look at it often, but when I do look at the county jail roster, it's kind of the same revolving door. It's the same people. I mean, it almost keeps everybody in a job. So my question is when somebody goes to jail and they say, I'll go to treatment. How many times, what if that person has been to treatment 20 times before? Do we send them for 21? Or do we do?
Because the 21st time might be the time that helps them. Yep. And Nathan, you can speak to this much better than I. We are really fortunate to have 2 social workers in the jail. And so we're working with folks to try and get the mental health needs or the chemical dependency needs taken care of upon their exit from the jail. The one thing that we run into is that oftentimes when folks are released, we don't have a support system set up well enough to catch everyone when they're released, but they go back to the same environment, and it's hard to make change in yourself if you're going back to the same place you were before. Do you want to speak a little bit more to
there's lots of details, and we could really get into the weeds about how jail works and the arraignment list, and us trying to meet with them in the 12 hours before they're seen by the court and maybe released that same day. I mean, it's hard to get significant things in place in less than 24 hours, especially in the social services world, but even any place really. And I just think those individuals who have gone to treatment 20, 25 times, sometimes the next time is the time that matters, and then there's times where we have hard discussions about, is a wet house more appropriate for this individual, and why we don't have any in Crow Wing County. There are some around the state, and those are hard questions too. And when do you give up on somebody, ultimately? And should we be? That's the question. And I guess for my team, we don't give up on them, and we keep trying to answer some of those hard questions.
I just know that the way my mom and dad raised me, and there was, with my dad, it was about one time of not listening to him, you know. I mean, it's probably not a good comparison, but I know a while back I had somebody call me that, and they wouldn't say what their name was, and they had somebody that had been up at the hospital 40 times through the program. So, anyway.
Any other questions for us, guys?
I was looking at this summary of the top 20 in the data that was presented here, and it's interesting data because it's so volatile from year over year. And when I look at the total, this is on page 11, when I look at the total column, year over year, just on these top 20, it's about a $400,000 hit every year that we've been going up. But then I go down and I look at the dollar amount, the claims, including the dependents, and when you go from 18 to 19, it's a $480,000 jump approximately, but then from 19 to 20, it's only a $35,000 jump. Similarly, when you go down to the timeline, the dollar amount, 18 to 19 was a $30,000 jump, and from 19 to 20 is a $180,000 jump. And it just points out the fact that this is such an unpredictable group that we're lucky we are where we are, I guess is how you have to say it, because we can implement all the strategies we want, and we never know what the outcome will be. But we make those assumptions and we implement the strategies, and then we pray that we get the outcome that we want versus the reality sometimes. So for me, I look at it and say, thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's a pretty tough job to predict where you're going to be and what's going to happen with these budgets, but also your staff time and the capacity that you have over there with your staff. So thank you for everything that you folks do over there. A job I never want.
Thank you, Commissioner, and it really is the staff. We have a pretty amazing team in community services, so we're really blessed, including you.
Thank you. I would say too, if you have further questions on some of that, you can certainly reach out to me or Carol.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our second order of business, which is the extension program updates. And Suzanne, if you will lead us through this one, or Ms. Hinrichs, as I call everybody when they approach the table.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Board Chair and Commissioners. I appreciate being here for our county extension update. You know, our programs are for adults and for youth, both, but they really do provide mental flourishing, mental well-being. A lot of our programs are helpful to people, especially in this day and age, where people are looking for something and it really helps them stay grounded. So we're going to tell you a little bit about our programs. I have 3 people with us. Carolyn McQueen, who's our SNAP Ed educator, could not be with us today, so I'm going to cover her things. We have some slides for us, but we do have some prepared remarks, but please jump in like you did last time, and it's a discussion. So let's go to our first slide. I just wanted to cover this because our County Extension Committee each year decides on a county farm family of the year. It's the University of Minnesota's program, Farm Family of the Year, and this year was the Schlegel family, Megan and Louis Schlegel. Megan is really the farmer. She's the driver here, but her husband does too. And there was a really nice article in the Brainerd Dispatch, and I have a copy of it, so I'll hand that out to you. But Megan she hatches chicks. So she has a hatchery, a small hatchery, where she is certified to ship across the country. And so she is doing hatching and shipping of chicks, certain breeds, and so she's found success with that. And the family is doing a lot of farming-related things. So it was really fun to honor them. They were honored at the Crow Wing County Fair this year.
So to interject real quick, because we didn't have a fair last year, I think we did the 2021 this year also.
That's a good point.
So-
I don't have a picture of them,
Right.
but yes, it was the Kahi family, Mac and Stacy Kahi, in the Crow Wing County, almost to the Morrison County line. Mac and Stacy are involved with Mac's parents' dairy herd, but also beef. They're raising beef cattle. So they have 2 little boys, great example of what farming can be for a young family. So Mac works off the farm, and Stacy raises the kids and handles a lot of the beef things. So yeah, thanks for mentioning them. So that's something that the Extension Committee does every year. They decide who should be. They take suggestions. They work with Farm Bureau, with Farmers Union. They get ideas. So if you have any ideas for Farm Family of the Year, we would welcome those, because it's hard to get new ideas every year. So, okay, so I think there's one more picture. Oh, no, that's you. So I'll turn it over to you, Brittany. Okay.
Good morning, commissioners and administrators. I'm happy to be here again. I was here just a few weeks ago with Dan and Jennifer, volunteers, and I'm happy to be here with the Extension colleagues today. I have a quick snapshot up there that some of you guys might recognize. We have 57 Master Gardeners in Crow Wing County, which is an impressive number, a really robust program. Really the only counties that have more than us are in the cities. For a rural county, we have a good number of volunteers. And that number matters because the Master Gardener volunteers are committed to a certain number of volunteer hours every year, and many of them do much more than that. So that represents a significant amount of time and outreach that volunteers are putting into the county. If you're not familiar with the Master Gardener program, the branch of the University of Minnesota Extension, these are our priorities. Our mission is to disseminate research-based horticulture knowledge throughout to all the citizens. Our program priorities, you can see there, are local food, climate change, nearby nature, clean water, pollinators, plant biodiversity, and horticulture skills. And our mission is really to promote change and make healthy people, healthy communities, and a healthy planet. And then next slide. Since I've seen you last, we've been to the county fair. We were really excited to be there. We're based in the horticulture building, and we set up our table, and we just immediately got swamped by people asking gardening questions. You know, why are our tomatoes not doing well this year? Just the gamut of questions. So we were happy to be back there. We're still tabulating our numbers. 100 questions is actually really on the low end. So we are happy to be back at the county fair this year. When I was here a few weeks ago, we talked about the community giving project, which is multifaceted. It includes started plants that we spread to organizations in need, container gardens to organizations county-wide, and then also we're growing food and donating it in the Northland Arboretum, and we have since hit our goal of 2,000 pounds of donated vegetables, which is a significant number of meals going out to citizens throughout Crow Wing County. And we are, the picture on the right is the volunteers at the Cuyuna Range Food Shelf, so we've been heading over to Cuyuna, heading up to Pequot, and then a lot of our food goes to the Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen, and then they spread from there with their new cooler freezer. So that has worked well, and we've been happy to be working with them. We've also reached out to WIC, and we've brought food, select food that they're interested in, and then they spread it to their clients from their offices too. That project's going well. We have, our master gardeners are just motivated individuals. They all have their niche. We have one volunteer that works at the Woodland Gardens at the Good Samaritan Center, and he provides education and direction for residents of the Good Samaritan Center to grow their own gardens. We have an ongoing partnership with Teen Challenge, which is really a win-win situation. If we need a little extra manpower, we'll give them an opportunity for community service. And then we have, scheduled days to go out and provide direction in their gardens. And we recently installed a pollinator garden there. We're a great resource for the community if, somebody has something going on and they're not quite sure what to do, how to do a gardening event. We're here to provide direction. Head Start reached out to us and they said, we want to do little, planters for the kids, but we don't even know where to start. Should we just dig up dirt? And so we have volunteers ready to head projects and provide direction for youth, adults, and citizens of all ages. So the Head Start, we reached 100 youth. The Monarch release we've been involved in Breezy since its inception, and they released 200 monarchs this year, and we're going to be providing education at the Great Pumpkin Festival this fall as well. The Speakers Bureau is ongoing with the Brainerd Public Library, and that has since moved to Zoom since COVID, and it has had really good participation. It was between the 100 and 200 during the summer. It kind of slowed down a little bit. I think people were just not on their computers as much, but it's ongoing, providing education to the citizens of Crow Wing County, and has a really good following. And we are available to speak on a variety of subjects to a variety of organizations. Anyone that reaches out to us, we're happy to go speak to them. And then just a snapshot, happy to share a couple pictures of the commissioners that visited the gardens out at the Northland Arb and cut some cabbage for us that we donated.
Did have one remark that a constituent made to me, that the head of cabbage looked better than the head on the body. just as a note.
I concur.
Well, there's looks and then there's, brains, so. So just a few other things I wanted to highlight. The Master Gardener volunteers are involved in Pollinator gardens, county-wide, and other gardens. Sometimes we'll stay involved, and sometimes we'll just kind of provide the direction to get something installed and off the ground. And we just act as a resource for the community when they have questions. Something that's kind of ongoing that I'm really excited about is our educational signage project. Crow Wing County is such a beautiful county, and we have so many visitors from all over, and we have such great residents, and I think we can really highlight the beauty of our community with some educational signage in different gardens. So that's something still in development. Our helpline is ongoing. We get it's not a lot, but it's probably 15 calls a month from residents just asking, when do I apply fertilizer? What kind of fertilizer? What happened to my maple tree? What kind of plants help with shoreline runoff? So we're always there as a resource for that. The Ask the Master Gardener column is an ongoing service that we provide to the dispatch, which is now a weekly column. The Downtown Brainerd collaboration, we're helping to beautify downtown Brainerd and provide some nearby nature. And then we're something that I have as a goal for our Master Gardener group is to really expand our education and knowledge on shoreland buffers and salt mitigation, and to work on furthering that service to our county. And I'm excited to talk with Administrator Houle next week. So if you guys have ideas for the Master Gardeners or things you would like to see done in the county, let me know, or let Administrator Houle know, and he can provide some direction. So,
Good.
thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I just want to say that the day that we were at the Arboretum, Commissioner Franzine and Administrator Houle, and the amount of food that you folks donated to the kitchen is just astounding and amazing, and the hours that they put in over there, and then how they treat the ground to kill the weeds, and that is an education point for me on how to care for that ground. And so it was just an exciting day for me to be there. It was a beautiful day in terms of weather, so it was a great experience to see what the Master Gardeners do there. I know when we're out on Carolyn Road,
Beautiful.
there's a garden out there that is taken care of by, remind me of the names.
Sharon Bodie and Marlis Ray.
And,
Oh, the veterans.
and who?
Oh, Dan and Jennifer?
Yep. All of them are involved in that out there, and what a great area that is. And so Master Gardeners are impacting the county all over the place, and I appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner.
I wanted to pony onto that and say thank you for making sure that the distribution is going countywide. I know that Dan mentioned going to Garrison as well.
Yes.
And so and the Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen has the refrigeration now. But even though it may come to the central location, it's being distributed out to the food shelves around the county. So that's cool too, not so that it's not, just here.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've heard is, the food shelves have volunteers, but the volunteers don't necessarily have the time to drive to Brainerd. So the Master Gardeners have been helping to get that distribution, and a goal not only to provide food, but to provide education countywide for, growing your own food. And I think we've done a really good job meeting that goal. And I want to thank you guys for investing in this position. I think I'm able to really make the Master Gardener's time spent volunteering a lot more efficient. So,
Well, I think we're getting a good bang for our buck for paying for a half-time person who probably does a lot more than a half-time work. So thank you very much, Brittany, for what you do.
yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
All right.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Cassie Gerling. Just a little background of me. I've been in this position since August of 2020. I'm an 07 Brainerd grad, and I taught in the school district for 5 years. So happy to meet all of you and be here. This first slide shows just a small snapshot of the 4-H programs in Crow Wing County. Last year, for the 2020-2021 year, there were 233 youth enrolled. 97 volunteers were enrolled. We have 10 active clubs. So clubs are based on location and interest. And last year there were 10 clubs that were meeting regularly, either virtually or in person. And 3 active project development committees. We call those PDCs. The 3 that were most active were livestock, dog, and horse. So those collection of people get together either monthly, some meet quarterly, and talk about ways that they can develop that project area in 4-H. In addition to that, we have Shooting Sports and Wildlife that meets. They meet primarily in the spring and the summer. We can see something? Oh. The spring and the summer. And then we also I'm hoping to develop the Performing Arts PDC as well. So. Programming is developed using the Youth Development Logic Model, and there are 2 program goals with that. First one is to learn, second one is to lead. So with learning, youth will learn by developing a passion in their areas of interest, and then leading, youth will lead by being innovators and social change agents. And I wanted to highlight that social change agent. Those are people who are involved in activities that improve the lives of individuals, both locally and then around the world. So some things that have happened recently. We had the Crow Wing County Fair August 3rd through the 7th, which was a lot of fun to see all of the kids come together and showcase their learning. We had 126 youth total that showcased their learning. 81 of them had animal projects, so either in the livestock, dog, or horse. And then 86 of them showed their general projects, and all of those general projects are in the 4-H building during the Crow Wing County Fair. So we had a decent turnout. It was down a little bit. We compared it to the 2019 fair, and it was about 75% of people, or 75% of projects that came back for this 2021 fair. So overall, I felt that was a good number.
Were all 10 clubs involved this year in the fair?
We did have representation from all clubs.
Okay.
Yep, so one thing, if you go into the 4-H building at the Crow Wing County Fair, they have the booths down the middle, and the clubs or project clubs will put together some sort of display, and all of those were filled this year.
Excellent.
In addition to the Crow Wing County Fair, the kids did either state or regional events. To participate in these state events, they have to have done well at the Crow Wing County Fair, so earned a blue ribbon in their project area. So at the Minnesota State Fair, we had 25 youth go down. State shoot, they had 5 youth go down. The state horse show, that included 2 drill teams and 6 quota trips, 14 youth overall participated in that. That was just this last weekend, and actually one of the youth that participated shared with me after it happened that she got 4th out of 55 in pole weaving over the weekend, so she was pretty pumped about that. She competed against 55 people in the state and got 4th place. State Dog Show is this coming weekend. We have 2 youth attending that, and then the Northeast Livestock Show was also this last weekend. We had 18 youth participate in that. Some ongoing learn and lead opportunities that we have in Crow Wing County specifically. Federation meetings, that's where the clubs and anybody who's involved in 4-H has the opportunity to get together and talk about, do some decision making for the 4-H as a whole, talk about maybe problems that are happening or some fundraising activities that we could be doing. That's happening, and youth are encouraged to take an active role with that in that decision making and voicing their opinions. Club meetings, they meet monthly. Project-based learning, so a lot of the learning is done individually, and then they can share that or what they're learning either at the club level or the county level, and then they can move beyond to the state level. Community service projects, some things that Crow Wing County 4-H has done. One club put together baskets for Christmas and gave them to the women's shelter. Another one, I wrote this one down, we participate in highway cleanup. We have a club that's volunteering at the Haunted Trail in October. They did some volunteering at the food booths at the fair, so lots of activity with community service. PDC meetings, again, those meet monthly or quarterly. They're meeting regularly to talk about how we can develop the projects. More recently, DOG was kind of on a decline, so we're working on building that back up, and that's they've gotten on the calendar to start meeting regularly again, which is a big win for those kids that are interested in DOG. And then the ambassadors, those are the role models of Crow Wing County. So the ambassadors are the older youth, and they're promoting 4-H to either at the county level and just in general promoting 4-H and also community service and those things. And then regional offerings and state offerings. Beyond the county level, we have access to some regional and state offerings, which Lori will expand on.
Okay. So, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Lori Holland. I am one of 5 regional educators in the Northeast region that help support Cassie in her role. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on some of that. So there are 5 of us that are somewhat experts in certain areas that support Cassie and help Cassie make sure that things are happening in Crow Wing County. And so one of the 2 of us are supervisors, and I am the supervisor for Crow Wing County, along with several other counties. But then there's also an educator that works with Cassie on making sure that the learning environments that she's providing in this county are quality, and they fall under our research-based methods. One of them was the logic model that Cassie shared with you earlier, that making sure that we are giving Crow Wing County the best. So that regional educator will help with Cassie on one-on-one one-on-one basis. Another area is STEM. We have a regional educator that is knowledgeable and an expert in the STEM area, and works with Cassie to ensure if there's an opportunity for a STEM club, she will work with Cassie to get that rolling and get opportunities and resources. Or if a club wants to offer some type of STEM activity, she's got resources that she can share with Cassie or come in and do some of that programming for Cassie. There is also civic engagement and leadership, and that goes back to that logic model is really what we want the youth to do is be a leader. And what does that leader look like? So that educator will come in and work with Cassie on fine-tuning an ambassador program that is the role models, or it might be just a kid wants to excel in a certain project area, and she'll come in and help with that process and make sure that that youth has a clean path. And so then there's animal science. And so if you've been to the county fair, you know a lot of the projects are animals. And behind the scenes with animals, there has to be some IDing going on. There has to be health records that need to be produced. There's some quality assurance that the youth have to. And that educator works with Cassie to ensure that all of the youth follow into those policies and procedures to make sure that it's, again, those animals are healthy and the kids are learning to the extent that they need to learn. We also have an educator in volunteer systems, and volunteers can be wonderful, but they can be tough too. So our volunteer systems person comes in and helps with making sure that they're screened. Every volunteer that works with 4-H has to have a background check. And making sure that they have the initial training, safety of minors, things on that lines. And then they also provide yearly trainings for these volunteers so that they can work with the youth in a positive way and making sure that, again, we're following those best research practices that we have. And then the last one might be a little more boring than the other ones, but that's operations. And the Federation has funds, and so the regional educator there comes in and makes sure that we're following all the guidelines with the funds, making sure that things are balanced, making sure that the funds are used appropriately, making sure that the tax documents that need to be filed are filed. So I just wanted, the reason behind giving you that little summary is yes, you invest in 4-H, and with that you get a local educator, but you also get this team of 5 regional educators that work with her. And I'm going to assume that Cassie has met with all 5 of the regional educators multiple times in her first year, and working with them. We're in the counties where we need to be. And so with that, now I'll go with the regional offerings. And so as you know, in the COVID realm, we had to pivot and work in a different way because we couldn't meet in a physical place. So the regional educators got together and we formed teams with the local educators. And the reason we did that was instead of having Cassie try to find 5 different programs to give to Crow Wing County, we had our 19 local educators in the Northeast region work in an area that they were passionate about and really give a virtual offering to the whole region. So we had 3 or 4 local educators working together, and then that was all offered in a virtual space during COVID. And we thought we gained new people in this process. We thought this is a good option. What can we do with it now that we're able to meet in person? So we've gone to a hybrid way of doing it. So those kids that want to do it virtually still can. They can sit in the comfort of their own home and take part in our offerings that we have, or they could go to the county. Some of the local educators provide a space where that they can come and meet together, but still participate in that virtual space, but yet the local educator or a volunteer is facilitating that, or the local educator can take that and do a standalone offering. So there's, again, passion and expertise throughout the whole region, got value in every county in the region. And currently we have, 6 offerings that we're doing in that hybrid model. And I can share this with you, or I can send you a link to the email, but this is our catalog that currently is able to, not just Crow Wing, but any county in the Northeast region, and even statewide if they catch it and they want to do it. Kids from other regions can participate, and our youth can participate in other regions' offerings as well. So, any questions on any of that?
You covered a lot of territory in a hurry there.
sometimes I talk too fast, so if you wanted any clarity behind any of that, so, yeah. Great. Then I will hand it back to Cassie.
Yes. So a lot of my time is spent kind of behind the scenes, coordinating, making sure everything goes off with Hitch, volunteers are in their place, youth have programming, but my favorite part is actually seeing the youth in action. So this here, I have just 2 youth to highlight. This is Lucy. She is going to 3rd grade, so she's out of that cloverbud range. The very beginning kids in 4-H are cloverbud, so kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd. It's non-competitive. It's kind of a time to explore what they want to explore their interests, essentially. So this is Lucy. She's putting pennies into the penny war containers at the Crow Wing County Fair. That's at the 4-H building during the fair, and it's a fundraiser for ambassadors. But I have just a link on the left. She is explaining a short video about her chicken playground that she did for her chickens that she was planning to show at the county fair. So we can go ahead and click that.
Is it this one?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Lucy, and I am 7 years old. This is my first year showing poultry in Crow Wing County. I have 12 red sex-link chickens who require lots of entertainment. So I decided to build a yummy, fun coop run playground. Come check it out with me. We have yummy summertime corn snacks and suet feeders full of fruits and vegetables. And we also have a water bottle emptied, full of food which they can peck at and also get food out of. And we have a teeter-totter which they can go up and down on, and the perch. And we have little pans over here that are full of food which they can peck at and make noise. And I hung baby toys up which they could play with and peck at. And a xylophone on the top. Thanks for watching!
Speaks better than we do up here.
I agree. I think you're doing great,
Oh.
but I agree. She's an amazing public speaker.
Some are real sensitive up here, so.
Yeah. So Lucy's part of the Black Bear 4-H Club, and she, at the county fair, she was there every single day with her Crow Wing County Fair t-shirt, participating in all of the things. So the beauty about 4-H is she actually didn't show her chicken. She decided that really wasn't her thing, and so she put that aside. But she kept with the chicken playground. She designed all of those things herself. Her parents just helped kind of, build it. But she is excited to do entomology, geology, and furniture restoration for this 2021 and 2022 year. The entomology, she has got a connection with a forest ranger, and he's been kind of on the lookout for different bugs. And me, curious, had to ask how she restores them, and she said she sticks them in the freezer alive, and that's how they do the entomology.
Preserve them
So,
that way.
yep,
sure.
that's how they preserve. So she says she puts them in, kind of feels bad for a little while, and then moves on with her day. So, cool little girl. Next gal, this picture in the middle is our Federation, their Federation officers. Hayden is on the far left. She is in college now. She is going for nursing, and she has acquired lifelong leadership skills through 4-H programming. She started in 4th grade, and she started doing rabbits and horses for her project area. And she's actually in your club, right, Dig It Brooke? Yeah. So she started doing rabbits and horses, and then through the horse PDC, she participated in the drill team, really got to know a community of equestrians that opened up her world to different opportunities. just some things that she participated in. She spent many hours in the saddle. She learned about the principles of good horsemanship through 4-H, and that led her later on to joining the high school rodeo in 6th grade. And she's now a rodeo team member at her college at South Dakota State University. And she competes in both amateur and professional rodeos year-round. Very cool. She also had a huge interest in leadership from early on. So from 5th grade to her senior year, she took on leadership roles through her club and federation. Each of the roles taught her new lessons on how to be a good leader and role model. And during her senior year, she achieved one of the biggest goals that she was trying to focus on, and she was elected the student president of the Minnesota High School Rodeo Association. So she's taking these skills she's learned through 4-H and applying them to her life and making changes and being a social change agent. So, again, those skills gave her the courage to go after those goals and the skills to be a leader. That is, I think, all I've got. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Very good, thank you very much. Very
Thank you.
impressive. I want to be 7 years old again and have
Right?
that come up.
I would love it.
And there's a few slides from Carolyn, so I'll just cover those. This is Carolyn. You might recognize her from being with you before. So Carolyn's program is funded by the USDA. It's a USDA grant, and it's for health and nutrition. Carolyn does both direct education with individuals and families, but she also does policy, systems, and environmental change. So she works a lot with community groups and leads that way. So these are some of her reportables that she has for numbers. So she's working with adults, teens, and youth. The youth numbers are big because she goes to schools in the area. She can go to schools that have free and reduced lunches that are above 50%. And she goes to Harrison, Garfield, and Riverside in Brainerd. And then she goes to Cuyuna Range Elementary. Go to the next slide. And she said she wanted to include this because she is surprised at how many people do not like vegetables. So this is about fruits. Some folks said, no, I don't like fruits and vegetables. And then after her class, they said, okay, I'm going to try fruits. But the next slide is about vegetables. And it's shocking how many people don't like vegetables. 50% of people that she has surveyed don't like vegetables and are not going to try them. However, she does have people that say, I will try that vegetable, and after trying them, 58% liked them. So I don't know about you, but green vegetables maybe aren't a fan for many people. She tries to work on that and tries to help them know that there's more to the vegetable, that they can like those things. So in addition to individual change, the SNAP Ed program realized that you can't just make individual change happen. You need to also surround people with a healthy environment. So that's why she's involved with a lot of these things. And you'll see Crow Wing Energized, which you hear a lot about, and I know that some of you are involved with that. She's involved in their leadership group. She's involved in the steering board. She's active on committees, and she also does many activities with them. This is a wordgram of her partners that she works with. So a lot of them are recognizable and making a difference in the community. So what she does is bring resources to those agencies and partners. In the past, you have given us the idea to partner with the library, and that has been a really fabulous partner, both for the Master Gardeners, but also for SNAP Ed programming. So that's something I just wanted to call out. Okay, next slide. And then she also is working with a lot of daycares. And so you'll see on the list here, she's listed quite a bit of her work. Many of them are with daycares, teaching daycare providers about health and nutrition, things like that. She's also introduced a lot of the EBT machines to farmers markets in the area, and she specifically is working with the Cuyuna Range Farmers Market right now. So that's in your district, and that seems to be flourishing, which is really great.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. And these are just some photos that she included. She's been involved with a social media campaign and billboards on food waste, trying to reduce food waste. She's been in the middle picture on the top, classroom energizers. What she does is she goes in with phy-ed teachers and then teaches the rest of the teachers about getting up, stretching, doing some energizers during the daytime. So she's teaching teachers about that. She has introduced One Vegetable, One Community to our community, and so this is a photo of some of the folks last year working on One Vegetable, One Community, which is rallying around a vegetable and kind of celebrating vegetables. The one on the left is the Food Shelf Coalition. The Food Shelf Coalition is very important because it brings together food shelves, and Carolyn brings resources to the Food Shelf Coalition. And then the POP Club, POP is Power of Produce. And this is a picture at the Cuyuna Range Farmers Market. And people who go through the POP class, Power of Produce, can get a voucher then for vegetables at the farmers market. And so this was a display at one of the vendors they just needed to give 2 vouchers for that basket of fruit, and they could take that home with them. So they're learning about vegetables and how to fix them. She gives recipes and she does demonstrations, things like that. And she's been involved with healthy food nudging. At all the food shelves in the area, this is just a picture of the Central Lakes College food shelf, but Carolyn has been helping to work on displays. Sometimes when you display food in a different way, people will take the healthier choice. So that's what she's been working on as well. So I think those were just some of her photos. I wanted to include this last slide, which is about pesticide testing. So University of Minnesota Extension is a partner with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Anyone who applies pesticides needs to be certified, either a farmer or if you're applying it on someone else's lawn. Let's say it's a mosquito business, or it might be a golf course, they have to be certified. So the county extension office has always been involved with training for private pesticide applicators, such as farmers. If you're doing applications of pesticides on your own farm fields, you go through a training every 3 years with the University of Minnesota Extension. Recently, though, we have added to the extension office in Crow Wing about 3 or 4 years ago the commercial pesticide proctoring. So Tracy in the extension office, she proctors the tests for the commercial applicators. So anyone from a golf course might come to us, a mosquito place, anyone that's applying chemicals on the land. And I just want you to take a look at the numbers. In 2019, she did quite a few testings, 31, but in 2020 it jumped to 77, and this year alone already she's done 210 tests. And a lot of that is because of COVID. Many other places did not offer this or did not stay open. She was able to do appointments, and so Crow Wing County really had an open door policy. We'll make an appointment, we'll make it happen, and that was a big deal. So I just want you to know that that is something that happened in the Crow Wing County Extension Office. It's been very busy because of that. We do collect a fee with that as well, and so you can see the fees went up. We collected over the year a little bit over $1,000 for 2019. Same with 2020, but you can see it's over $4,000 in fees this year. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And I think that's all we have for today. So if there's any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, thank you for letting us be here. It's great to be a part of the meeting.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment if I can.
Sure.
First of all, great presentation by everybody. And as I sat here and listened to it, it kind of sparked something from way back in my life about how these young people, when they, like FFA, I can remember FFA when I was in high school, and 4-H, and how they're, and in your presentation, how it's actually developing leaders that are going to go on in life. And I just want to tell you a quick story about me. Okay, so I was like, I was just trying to think back how old I was. I was like 24 years old. And all I knew was cows. I was milking cows. That's all I wanted to do. And if you'd have said, who's your United States congressman, I'd have said, what? Because I didn't know anything about anything except cows. And Marvin Falk, who's passed away a long time ago. Marvin Falk was the county vice president of Farm Bureau. And he says, he calls me up, he says, Paul, he says, wow, we're having a Farm Bureau meeting tonight. And he says, I'd like to have you come along. And I said, well, I'm busy milking. And he said, oh, it doesn't start till 8:30. So he was he'd talk you into things. So he talked me into going. I get there, and I'm sitting there, and he says, look at this young lad here. He said he'd make a good county vice president. So Marv didn't want to be the county vice president anymore. So lo and behold, all of a sudden I'm the county vice president. I don't know nothing, you know. And then they look at me, and they're going through the annual meeting, and they says, we need a delegate to go down to the state convention down at Radisson South is what it used to be called. I don't know what it's called now, that big tall building in Bloomington. So they said, look at this young lad here. And so they talked me into it. So I went down there, and there's probably 1,000 people there, and it was kind of a big deal when you're 24 years old. And I get down there, and there was 7 districts for the state board of directors on Farm Bureau. And Farm Bureau is nonpartisan, so it just happened that our director was running for some political office, so he had to resign. So there was an empty seat. And I'm in the district meeting, and somebody says, hey, look at this young lad here. So I find myself, in the course of like about a month, I'm on the state board of directors of Farm Bureau. I'm on the top floor of the Radisson South at 24 years old, and I'm looking out, and I'm with like 50, 60-year-old people, and I'm like, well, I'm thinking, I'm way out of my depth, you know. And they started telling me about what it all entails to be on the board, and we were like citizen lobbyists for the farmers. And so flew out to Washington, D.C. in January, never been there before. And I can still remember we were sitting in a big room, and here comes this little guy coming up. He just was kind of almost like he was bouncing. And it was Paul Wellstone. He had just beaten Rudy Boschowitz, and he came in, and I still didn't really understand all this stuff, but as I was on the board, it sparked an interest in me to pursue public service, you know. So I decided, after I served 2 terms there, I decided to run for the state senate. So that would have never happened if it wouldn't have been for Farm Bureau and Marvin calling me. I'd probably be still milking cows and this deep in manure, probably. So it does, it helps.
It gave you a place to practice and to kind of come along and listen and learn how it worked, and then demonstrate you can do it too.
Absolutely.
So someone believed in you. That's all it takes. Cool. Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much for this time together.
Thank you very much.
And we, something that Cassie, also I want to make sure, we mentioned the pasta supper, the Alfredo dinner. So I'll leave some flyers here, and maybe Therese, you could pass them around. But it's a pasta Alfredo dinner, raising money for 4-H in October. So if you like pasta, or if you have a silent auction item, you can bring it for that too.
Where's that being held at?
The VFW, right?
Yep, VFW.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate it. Very good presentation.
Thanks for having us.
Any other business? If there's no other business, I'll adjourn the meeting. See you all next week.